You're watching PM Agenda. Well, we've heard there from Finance Minister Penny Wong the case for the mining tax, which the government is certainly confident will go through the lower house this week, possibly as early as this evening, with the House due to sit well into the night, possibly in the early hours of tomorrow morning. The opposition, though, will be voting against it. Why? Well, the coalition is concerned about slugging the mining sector, killing the goose that lays the golden egg, and also that the revenue assumptions are out because of the shifting price of iron ore and coal. I spoke a short time ago to the Shadow Assistant Treasurer, Matthias Cormann. Matthias Cormann, thank you for your time. What is your principal objection to the mining tax?
Well, the mining tax is a bad tax from a bad government which came out of a highly dodgy process. We've got to remember how this all started. This started with the Henry Tax Review, which was supposed to be a once-in-a-generation opportunity for root and branch reform of our tax system to make our tax system simpler and fairer. What we've ended up with is a dog's breakfast which is manifestly more complex and less fair, with serious question marks as to whether it will raise the revenue the government says it will raise, and with very clear indications, even on the government's own figures, that the cost of all of the promises the government has attached to the mining tax will far exceed the revenue Treasury projects it will raise.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, I mean, Treasury has released under FOI the revenue projections between now and 2020. We've got the figures, of course, over the forward estimates. And over the forward estimates, the government tells us that now the mining tax is expected to rise $11.1 billion, $4 billion in 2013-14. In 2013-14, the cost of all of the promises that Labor has attached to it, according to their own figures, is $2 billion higher than the revenue the MRRT will generate. So the government has got a massive black hole here.
But then in the following years, won't the revenue increase from the mining tax?
Well, and this is the point. Government projections, Treasury projections are that revenue from the mining tax is downward trending over time. We currently have got record commodity prices. We've got the best terms of trade in 140 years. The expectations are that there will be a supply response around the world. As you have a supply response, prices will come off over time.
But investment is increasing in Australia, even with the knowledge this mining tax is about to come in.
Well, what the government should do is they should come clean and transparently release all of the revenue assumptions that they've used, their commodity price assumptions, the production volume assumptions. This is information that state governments, whose revenue is sensitive to variations in these sorts of assumptions, publish as a matter of course in their budget papers. Wayne Swan is keeping it secret. He's telling
us... He says it's commercial in confidence. These miners can't have all of their price assumptions released into the public for their competitors to see.
So what he's saying here is that the three big miners who were given exclusive access to negotiate the mining tax design in secret with the Prime Minister and the Treasurer are the only ones to know, the only ones allowed to know what the government's revenue assumptions are. So here they are. The government has designed a tax which gives those three big miners an unfair competitive advantage already, and the government is saying to us the only people in the whole of Australia allowed to know what the government's revenue assumptions are the big three miners who designed the tax.
But do you accept, though, that a lot of people are seeing these huge mining profits, multi-billion-dollar profits, and they see the idea of a mining tax as one they support? All the polls show there's pretty strong support for this.
Well, I mean, obviously companies who make huge profits pay a huge company tax, and of course mining companies who get a lot of resources out of the ground pay a lot of royalties.
Not Fortescue, they've admitted they paid no company tax.
Well, and the reason they haven't, I mean, Fortescue, people forget, Andrew Forrest has done a very good job to start off a completely new company, to take it in record time from a startup to a company that's now the fourth biggest in Australia, I suspect, in the context of iron ore.
But he should be paying a fair share of tax.
And of course he should. Of course he should pay a fair share of tax. And of course he pays royalties for the resources he extracts from Western Australia. And when he makes profits, he obviously will pay company tax. But this is the whole point. Like, I mean, the BHP and Rios, when they started off, were able to have the same sort of startup opportunities which they now want to deny smaller local miners, which the government wants to deny, smaller local miners. I mean, the reality is to have smaller local miners aspiring to become the BHPs and Rios of tomorrow is a good thing. It's a good thing for Australia. It's a good thing for our economy. It's a good thing for jobs. And of course, the more successful these companies are, the more company tax they will pay on profits.
But in saying no to the mining tax, you're saying no to what it'll pay for as well. The superannuation increase, the company tax cut for all other businesses, and the instant asset write-offs for small business.
Well, as I've just said, I mean, the government has made a whole series of promises which they have attached to the mining tax. There's a serious question mark on the revenue it will raise. But what we do know is that the cost of the promises that Labor has attached to the mining tax will continue to increase over time as the revenue from the mining tax will reduce over time. And that is according to Treasury projections. So this is a fiscal train wreck in the making. And the government knows this, which is why they've been ducking and weaving to not release information which we've been seeking for some time.
Well, speaking of fiscal problems, isn't there an issue here for the coalition? Tony Abbott has said that while you'll oppose it now, if you win the next election, you'll keep the superannuation increase, but not the mining tax. It's another thing you're going to have to pay for from where? Well,
out of the 8 or so measures that the government has attached to the mining tax, we've said that we would not rescind one. And of course, we are currently going through a process, through an expenditure review committee process where we are going through the budget line by line. We're identifying government waste, and we will be funding the $740 million that this measure costs over the current 4 years.
How much in total does the coalition need to fund with all of the policies that you've got?
Well, I mean, that is obviously a process we're going through now. We are going through that process very diligently, line by line. I mean,
is the $70 billion figure that the government uses accurate?
Well, it is not an accurate figure. I mean, the government has come up with 2 multi-billion-dollar new taxes, the carbon tax and the mining tax. And both the carbon tax package and the mining tax package both leave the budget worse off. The measures attached to the revenue both cost more than the revenue it's going to generate. I mean, only the Labor Party can come up with multi-billion-dollar new taxes which leave our budget in a worse position.
But even on that one measure, the superannuation measure, I'm told that in your party room meeting today, a couple of MPs or a few MPs expressed concern that Tony Abbott announced this without consultation with the party room. Were you similarly concerned?
Look, I don't talk about what is discussed inside the party room, but let me just say this, though, that there is complete and total support from the coalition for the position that we've adopted, and that is that we are opposed to the mining tax. We'll vote against the mining tax and all of the measures attached to it when it comes for a vote before the Parliament. We will rescind the mining tax if the government is successful in getting it passed. We would not rescind the increase in superannuation. However, we would not proceed with any of the other measures that the government has attached to it. That is a position that is overwhelmingly supported across the whole party room.
Matthias Cormann, thank you.
Good to be here.
The Shadow Assistant Treasurer, Senator Matthias Cormann. A little later in the show, we'll also